Okay, welcome guys. Today I'm meeting with a bunch of the Missoula Strikers, Ross, Chris, and Joe. We're going to talk about the Missoula Strikers Academy program. And to be honest with you guys, I have been looking forward. I've had this on my mind as a tech talk for some time and finally get around to doing it. So I appreciate you guys giving your time to make this happen today. Before we get started, I'd like you guys to each introduce yourself a little bit, what your role is within the Strikers, is specifically within the Striker Academy program. Ross, can we start with you?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having us on, Rick. Thanks for giving us the opportunity and the platform to share some of what we do. We're excited to be on this too, so thanks for reaching out. Like Rick said, I'm Ross McMonies. I'm the director of the club. I've had this role for 6 years now, going into my 7th. And we've come a long way. And one of the major improvements we've made is to our academy system and philosophy and operations. So my involvement in the academy is kind of just overseeing it. I'm fortunate enough to have great people like Joe and Chris, who will introduce themselves in a minute, who really both dive deep into what we do. So I'll pass it on to these guys.
Okay. Rick, thanks again for having us, Rick. Happy to chat. My name is Joe Larson. I'm the director for our Strikers Academy program, also the director for our recreational program as well. So, and this is my 3rd year with the Academy program as its director. So.
Okay, and how long with the recreational program? Same time?
About 5 years with the recreational program.
I always say, for any club, I think the recreational program is the hardest to run. So kudos to you for hanging in there for 5 years.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Yeah, you bet. Chris?
Chris Essman. I've been coaching the academy program 4 to 5 years. And then the past 2 to 3 years, I've been serving as more of the head coach for the program. I designed the coaching curriculum, set out session plans for the coaches, and then run specific coaching clinics or provide sort of feedback or instruction on how we can successfully run the academy program. And it's been a great challenge, as you can imagine, figuring out the nuts and bolts as to what works with the younger kids, while also maximizing our vision for how we want to improve and develop our players for those ages.
Okay, and we'll get into, as we talk today, we'll get into the curriculum a little bit, I think. Let's start where I would say is the beginning. What is the Strikers' philosophy when it comes to your academy program?
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the mission with our academy program, Rick, is it's extremely developmental, and it's a preparation for what comes next for these players. So we really want them to develop a passion for soccer and enjoyment for playing and being with their friends and learning how to be good teammates as they progress to challenges that come as they get older and move into our competitive program, as they move teams, and hopefully for some of them onto collegiate careers as players. So we really want to work on foundational skill development with our academy players.
Okay. Yeah, there's a saying in soccer, you guys are probably all aware of it. You can only play tactically within your technical ability. So if I can't make a 10-yard pass, it makes it very difficult to, start with any tactics going on. So the technique, we all know this is the foundation. What does your philosophy change? Well, let me ask, what age group is considered academy for the Strikers?
So for us, Rick, the age groups that we identify for our academy program are U9, U10, and U11 boys and girls are in our academy program. And it's been like that for a long time. Now that we do have exceptions, we do occasionally allow U8 players to enter the academy program. More often than not, those have been coaches' kids. in the program. Occasionally, we have identified players that are U12 age eligible that needed more work. And so we've suggested and provided the academy program for those players for just an extra season of development for them, because we felt like that was in their best interest for where they were at as individual players.
Okay. Does your philosophy for your academy program, does it change by age? Is it different for your U9s than it is for your, say, U11s, or is it the same throughout the program?
Yeah, let's pass this one on to Chris.
Okay.
All right. So the expectations philosophy change progressively as they age through the program. U9 age is more just the introduction into it, where we try to create as fun of an environment as possible. We stress a little bit more of small-sided games and playing more so than really diving into the technical skills we want to establish. The U10, we start to pick it up a bit more. And then by U11, we start to really establish the exercises and drills that we want our kids to be able to execute successfully. So making a proper pass, not having that toe pointed down, but having that toe pointed up with a successful passing technique. We start to heavily influence our juggling instruction, as that leads to ball control and shooting technique. And then if it happens to be a particular standout group and their development is need to be adjusted by pairing kids in particular groups to focus on things that they need to focus on, then we maybe start to mix things a little bit different. Whereas the younger ages, it's all mostly one big group, and then we have hopefully 2 to 3 coaches to break out and all feed off each other to wrangle in the kiddos.
Okay. Do you guys create, I know when I recommended Academy to Montana Youth Soccer, God, probably 15 years ago, I was recommending that clubs create pools of players. I know some clubs have probably gone away from that. So do you create pools of players, or are you creating teams? And is it the same at each age group?
So, Rick, what we do with our academy program is we really focus on pools of players through our academy program. So for our U9 group, let's take our U9 boys, for example, they would train as a pool together and move through our academy program as a pool of players. For games, for tournaments, we typically integrate the youngest 2 age groups for games and tournaments. U9s, U10 players are typically pooled together for those events. For our U11 age group, we typically, for games and for tournaments, we typically keep them separate, and we don't integrate with the youngest age groups. So we found that to be really effective.
And how large are the pools, or how small? What's the number for a typical pool of players?
Typically it's about 20 to 25 is what's typical. We've had smaller pools. We've also had larger pools up to 40 in some instances, and that's quite overwhelming. But
yeah,
it's a great challenge, and it's something that as coaches and as folks really involved with youth soccer, pools like that in a specific gender age group, something that we get really excited about. So
yeah. I'm sure, like every club across the state, everyone needs more coaches, especially if you have a pool of, say, 24 or 30 or whatever. What do you try to keep the coach to player ratio? And I'm sure a lot of it is based on, how many coaches you can get. It'd be great to be a 1-to-1, but that's not going to happen.
No, I think that's definitely one of the biggest challenges. I think probably for everyone in the state is coaching recruitment. coach education. It's definitely always a challenge. But with our academy program, we try to keep it at 1 to 12, 1 to 15. We feel pretty happy about that. It's been higher in some instances, and that's not a great situation for coaches, and it's not a great situation for players, especially with some of these young players, these young kids that we're coaching. There's a lot of needs that they have, and so the higher the ratio, it's not a great situation. It's one that we try to avoid as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Comes down to how many, volunteer coaches you can get to show up. Is there like a head coach for a pool with, 1 or 2 assistants? Is that how you normally do it?
Chris, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll do that. It kind of depends on the group and also the proficiency of the coach. We sort of experimented with, if we have a larger group, sometimes we've paired 3 or 4 coaches with them in the past. And for that group, we noticed that there's usually 1 head coach, and then the other 2 to 3 go around to specific kids providing technical instruction. The problem with this is if you get too many kids together, regardless of how many coaches, has a tendency to allow them to get distracted in that environment. So we've also broken into, instead of a group of 3 to 4 coaches with 30, it would maybe break into 3 different groups, 3 to 4 different groups of, 8 to 10 kids. And this is, we feel like this has been a good model for us to do because it lowers the ratio. And then each coach is able to have his or her own autonomy for running the session, that they're the ones that are really actively engaged in running it. But the problem with this, that they would have to then, each person has to have the proficiency of how to run the session, how to teach everything correctly, and then how to execute our curriculum as closely and accurately as possible. So it's definitely a bit of a balancing act, and there's we feel like there's not necessarily one size fits all, and it kind of depends on maximizing your resources the best you can.
Yeah. So you were saying, Joe, that come whatever you want to call it, a jamboree, a showcase, a friendly match, you have to create teams, obviously, from your pool of players. Are you creating A and B teams, or you try to make equal teams? A lot of it may be who's available to play that weekend too. So how do you guys go about that, and does it change for a U9 or U10 or a U11?
Sure. Great question, Rick. It's one that constantly changes. With our academy program for games or for tournaments, we tend to not include those events in the overall program registration. We make them a la carte so that it can be a more affordable option for some families. So it's an extra. In our case, this might not be the case for other clubs, but for us, it's an extra fee for participants to go to games and tournaments. With our U9 and U10 players, we have zero interest on what their results are. So those players are just pooled together and mixed by age and by ability. We're just interested in introducing some of the game experience and tournament experience to those players in a really kind of entry level kind of way. With the U11 age group, we recognize that those players are in a transition year as they move into our competitive program. So we have in the past, depending on numbers, created A and B teams, I guess would be maybe another way to put it. But more just focused on the best situation for players. And sometimes having a more competitive team and a more developmental team is best for some of those players. So. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that if a player shows what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe the want, to get more experience, you guys allow, for those types of options for those kids or parents that are looking for a little bit more, and say, look, I want more, I want to train more, I want to be a better player. It sounds like that fits within your your academy program?
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. I mean, we have a lot of coaches watching all of these players over a long period of time. So we have a really good sense of who our players are, where they're going, and kind of a trajectory for that, a projection for them that is positive, and hopefully provides them with a challenging experience so that they can achieve whatever goals they have. So.
Right. So obviously you're starting grouping them by age, U9, U10, U11. But if you have that outlier kid that has maybe developed a little faster physically, mentally, do you guys have the flexibility to move them around within your program?
Chris, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, again, that's a bit of a case by case basis,
Right.
and it's definitely has created some problems in the past on how do you balance what's good for the individual and what's good for the group. Fortunately, I haven't had that issue as much the past few years because for whatever reason, all of our groups are growing really well together. So almost every age we have coming through our academy is strong. So we haven't necessarily warranted a need to push kids up or down. As we approach our competitive program, we've sort of moved into discouraging play ups as unless they're fine exceptions to the rule, because we want each group to be as strong as possible, and those individual players provide the overall group a challenge that we have found, especially at the younger ages, that the younger ages sort of step up and meet that challenge, that they want to be able to compete and go against that kid, and he could be that good example. But if it is a firm exception, then we absolutely do what's best for the individual on an individual basis.
Yeah, that is, I'm sure every club has to deal with it. Probably every year you have 1, 2, or 3 kids, and there is no, if there was a set way to do it, everyone would do it that way.
Yeah.
So I think assessing each one on an individual basis, taking everything into account, is the best way to do it. And it's never an easy call, but if the option is there, I think that's the main thing. And then that's why you guys get paid the big bucks to make those decisions.
Yeah,
right?
we're fortunate enough, Rick, to be in a position and in a community where we have a good number in each pool, in each age group. So those play ups are few and far between.
When you have, go ahead, Ross. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
well,
we're looking to compete on a regional level. So going outside of the state, if you've moved some players up in a certain age group, that younger team is now going to struggle. So we're kind of looking on a much broader perspective, and trying to do what's best for the team on a whole too sometimes. So very, very much like Chris said, case by case basis.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you have more numbers. It actually probably makes it a little easier. If you're from a small community, like pick a Big Timber or a Plains, Montana, that I think is much more difficult for them, who they're just looking around saying, can we put a team together? But when you have these pools of players, I think you have a little more flexibility in making those decisions. How many times a week do you guys train your academy program?
With our academy program, Rick, we train every Monday, every Wednesday, and that's the fixed training times for our academy players. In the past, we have had an academy house league that we've provided as part of our academy setup, which is just kind of a jamboree type format. Kids get assigned to teams if they're available, and it's a lot of it's just games, 7v7, one game every Friday night. Was great. COVID made that a little bit problematic last spring, summer, fall. So hopefully we can return to that setup this coming spring. So.
How long is a training session? Hour and a half?
Yeah, hour and a half. That's about right. Normally we go from 4:30 p.m. every Monday and Wednesday. Getting 8, 9, 10-year-olds kind of right after school creates its own unique challenges for coaches, and but it's good energy, and we just try to ride that wave through that session.
So they get their twice a week training, Monday, Wednesday, and then obviously in a typical year, the Friday in-house kind of league scrimmage program. So, if I'm assuming Fridays are, you don't have to be there, I guess, or if you can't make it, but if a kid wants, they can get 3 days a week.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. And we do offer, like we touched on earlier, some games, friendlies with other clubs across the state, and tournaments, but we're really just trying to introduce the tournament experience to players and parents. From being around Montana for a long time, it's easy to rack up the miles and dollars for playing club soccer in Montana. So we just, with the academy setup, we're just trying to introduce some of those elements. So not a real focus on results. So
by having your in-house league or whatever you want to call it, little mini tournaments, it cuts down on that windshield time, for the players driving to wherever, Bozeman, Helena, Great Falls, Kalispell, and they get to spend time on the field kicking the ball around. So that's a great idea. Do you guys incorporate any tactics into your training session? My guess would be more in the U11 and less in the U9, but about what percentage is spent on the technical side of the game at a typical training session, and what percentage is spent on the tactical side?
Yeah, it's all about technique for us, but I'll let Chris jump in on this one.
Okay.
I'd probably say it's close to 95 to 99% technical focus, maybe 5 to 1% tactical, with the only emphasis on tactics is what we call pinching, our reaction to win it back. And the whole purpose of that is just to show a willingness to win the ball back when we lose it. All the way through our competitive program, our philosophy and style of play is designed to keep the ball, control the ball. And we put a lot of emphasis on our academy program because we think that's a very important, crucial time to go ahead and start establishing the fundamentals on how to control the ball. And so all of the sessions and stuff that we do requires the ball and tries to maximize the amount of touches, the amount of reps that kids get on the ball during those hour and a half sessions. Another thing I wanted to touch on was even though we do have hour and a half sessions, we may focus on a particular skill or activity during the day. So if we spend a lot of time juggling, we challenge those kids to spend maybe an hour, 2 hours till next week to practice on their own at home. It's less important if they actually do that hour and a half to the exact time, but we hope to establish a habit of going home and playing with their own ball, or invite a friend or a neighbor from down the street to play, because our sessions are designed to push technique, how to pass the ball properly, how to dribble with proper control, how to juggle. But in order to really push them to where they need to go, they need the game time. And we can't always just rely on games during the weekend or traveling for tournaments. That needs to happen with kids at school or kids down the street.
I have always been a big fan of homework for soccer players. So, and you can tell who, obviously you can't make them do their homework, but you can tell who is doing it. And there's nothing better than peer pressure, right? As a coach, you can say whatever you want, all you want, but when their best friend says something or does something, that means a lot more than coming from us, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, I tell you guys, I appreciate you talking to me today. I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to talk to you guys about this for a long time. And the reason is I look at your kids around the state coming out of the academy, right? Going into the under 12s, the under 13s, 14s, and the majority of them are technically sound. So I hope you don't mind sharing your secrets of what you do in your club. I think, a high tide raises all boats. And, if other clubs watch this and they take on your philosophy a little bit and their teams get better, that's only going to help your teams when you play them get better. So I appreciate you sharing this with the state. I want to ask one more question before we go. And maybe you can all chime in and answer. Maybe your answers will all be the same. But and this is a tough question, I think. How do you judge success?
Just to rewind a little bit, Rick, to share kind of our secret to success. We don't just throw a curriculum together and pull sessions off the internet. We have a long-term vision. Our academy curriculum, Chris has put a lot of work into it. Joe and myself have put a lot of work into it. It's been developed based on our older teams in the competitive stage. We're implementing things that we might have seen proficiencies in or lack of ability in certain areas. So we're going back to the start and implementing those things with the academy to then see long-term success, 5-7 years down the road. It's not a success overnight formula. It's a long-term vision. So in terms of measuring that, I would say we measure it on the field, again, 5-10 years down the line. I think Missoula Strikers, again, has a long-term vision, and hopefully 10 years from now, we have teams that are recognized on the regional level. That's kind of the goal. So I'll let these guys jump in to answer that question again and elaborate.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Chris, sorry.
Thanks. Sorry. For me, I would say being kids of every ability, just simply get better and improve. And then also start to enjoy training more is the success meter I follow as a coach through the season. The first week or first couple sessions are always kind of rocky, especially if it's with a new group, because they're a bit of a rambunctious bunch. But then, and maybe they don't necessarily know what we're looking to do during practice, so it takes a little bit longer wrangling them in. But then as the season goes on and they start to understand that what we're going to do is fun, but also very challenging. And most of the players enjoy that challenge because they're able to see the success that comes from it, that they start to get more buy-in even at that age. And so they're giving more, they're trying more. And because they're more invested, they focus a bit more. So then that's really where the development and where the individual improvement comes from. So seeing a kid not being able to pass the ball or toe the ball or whatever to making an actual pass is pretty cool to see, however small scale that is, because that's a pretty crucial building block that over the many years of them playing our program will lead to them to be a pretty darn good player.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for
Joe,
me,
do you want to
Rick,
add to that?
yeah, I think for me, some of the success is, a lot of my relationship with these players started with our rec program. So seeing them, start in our rec program, move through our academy program, and then now onto competitive teams, and to still have a passion for soccer and to care about soccer and to constantly be trying to get better. That's a success for me. But our academy program is super inclusive of kids of all abilities. So the wins for some kids are going to be different than the wins for other kids. So just seeing that happen at lots of different levels with lots of different kids, boys and girls, it's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Every kid has their own level of of wins, as you put it. You know, some it might be I made one good pass today in the game, right? And that could be a win for them. And if you make a big deal about it, then the next goal is they want to make two, and so on.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, Ross, you know, you guys looked at your end product, and then you said, okay, this is where we need to make some improvements. Let's go back to our younger kids, start working on that, and we'll see in 5, 6, 7 years what the results are. So I guess for me, it sounds like you're building, or you're developing a culture within the strikers of working hard, of improving, and with this goal in mind that you want to be, you know, recognized not just in Montana, but hopefully in the region. And it might take 5 years, it might take 10. This does not happen overnight, but developing a culture of a high level, I think, is very important, because that gives you something to strive for. So, well done, guys. Like I said, my only observation is what I see from your kids coming out of your program and seeing them on the field. And I like what I see. You guys are doing a great job there. So keep it up. Well done. I really appreciate the time that you guys gave Montana Youth Soccer today. Let me ask one more thing. If clubs want to get a hold of you, if anybody wants to get a hold of you and ask you questions about your academy, would you guys make yourself available to do that?
100%. Like you said, if other clubs around us get better, we get better. So
Yep.
we're willing to share whatever we can. Yep.
Great. I appreciate it, guys. Hey, have a good weekend. Stay safe and healthy.
Same.
You too.
Thank you, Rick.
Bye.